Hi everyone, my name is Michael Barletta, co-founder of AguaceroWx, and today we're going to be going over one of the more complicated aspects of the Aguacero application, but one of the most unique, which we call the time anchor. So what we see on the map currently is visible satellite, and right now we only have this visible satellite layer. So we could move forward and backward through time, and we see visible satellite on there. If I can direct your attention to the bottom of the screen where we could set the time, UTC, or I'm in the Eastern time zone, so Eastern Daylight Time, we see right next to that is the anchor. Basically what this means is what is the slider anchored to, which is why it's called the time anchor. So what step and what length is the or is the slider using? That goes based on the time anchor. Where this is really valuable is when you have multiple different layers that don't match up with the same exact times exactly. So what will happen is whatever the time anchor is set to, let's say we have multiple different layers on here, and let's do that now while I am explaining this. So let's add an MRMS layer on top of the satellite layer. So let's just add merged reflectivity, and we'll give that a second to load in. But basically what it's doing is it's going to match up the times of the two different data sets that we have so that you're able to visualize them both at the same time. So now we see reflectivity has showed up with satellite. So if we look at the time anchor now and click on this, we have a couple of different options. We have the forecast, which is tied to the GFS, but we have no GFS layers on there currently. Then we have the GOES-19, which is the visible satellite layer that we have on there. And then we have reflectivity, which is our MRMS layer. Currently, the anchor is set to reflectivity. So that means that every time we move this slider, the reflectivity is going to change. And likely the satellite layer will change, but the satellite layer is going to be based on the nearest time available to that MRMS reflectivity layer. So as we move backwards in time, we see both of these layers changing, generally together, but not always. Again, the satellite layer will be using the closest available time to the MRMS layer, which is what the time anchor is basically telling us. We could switch that to GOES-19, the visible satellite layer, although it will look relatively similar. Where we might see more of a difference is if we change this, let's change this model to the HER, and let's add a model layer, and let's add reflectivity. So let's just add regular composite reflectivity to the HER. So we see currently the times are matched up. The anchor is set to the forecast. So currently the time anchor is set to the HRRR. So we see this is what the HER expects to happen at 2 a.m. And this is what the satellite currently has. So we could see as we move backwards now, the satellite is not changing because it's just using the current time. However, if we go in between hour 0 and hour 1, we do see that change with the satellite layer because it's using the closest available time to the forecast, which is the HER composite reflectivity. Obviously, as we go further out in the forecast, the satellite layer is not going to change because there's no future satellite. We're looking at it at real time. But we're able to go backwards in time with the satellite layer to see how things match up with the HER. So this could be useful in a lot of instances. Comparing different models, if you want to have different models and compare them, maybe across multiple panels, having what I showed before, composite reflectivity with satellite layers, or maybe doing the HER with the HER sea level pressure with RTMA sea level pressure. That would be also good to see. Okay, does the HER have the low pressure in an area where it's actually occurring via RTMA, and etc. Or if there are any biases. So that is the basic rundown of how the time anchor works. Whatever the anchor is set to is what the time slider is going to be set to. So as we're moving this along, we see that the time step is 1 hour for the her. If we change this to satellite, now things are going to move based on the satellite layer. So if we start moving backwards in time, we see the her changed, but at some point the her is just not going to go any further backwards. So we see this satellite layer updating, but the her layer not updating. But we see at a certain point the her layer does start to update because it's through its hour 0 and hour 1 forecast hours. So that's the basics of how to use the time anchor. If you ever have any questions, please reach out to us on our Twitter at AguaceroWx or via our email or through our Discord. Thank you very much.